What's up everyone? I'm Tim and this is my channel 40 Times Around, where we talk about everything related to motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. And today we're going to do a little tire review of the Michelin Pilot Road 4 trail tires. That's quite a mouthful. And also talk a little bit about the tires I had on this bike before those, and that was the Anakee 3s. And we're just going to do a little review and talk about my opinion, how they held up, how they handled certain road conditions and things like that. Anyways, stick around. Okay, so like I said, today we're going to do a little review of the last two sets of tires I've had on my R1200GS. Talk a little bit about their performance and how they held up. And before I jump into that, I wanted to go over something because I actually was price shopping tires online. I wanted to talk about this because if any of you are shopping around for tires, you can definitely save some money buying online. That's one of the great things about the internet, is it has made a lot of things a lot more affordable for people. Motorcycle tires are no different. They are much more affordable online, typically, not always. But if you are buying online, as in not from a reputable source, and this is really important because tires have a shelf life. Even if it's a brand new tire, if it's more than 10 years old, it's probably no good. So you want to make sure if you buy tires online that you're not buying something that somebody was throwing out, because that's definitely a possibility. The date code is pretty easy to find. There's going to be a little DOT stamp on the tire, and just to the right of that are going to be a bunch of letters and numbers and all kinds of crazy things. What you want to look for though is the last 4 digits. It should be 4 numbers. Now, if it's only 3 numbers, that means that tire is no good because it is pre-2000 and needs to be thrown out. So there's going to be a little 4-digit number. Now, the first 2 digits of the 4-digit number are the week of the year. In other words, if it was a 5-2, that would mean the tire was manufactured the last week of December, 52 weeks in the year, last week of the year. The second 2 digits are going to be the year. In other words, 18 would mean that tire was manufactured in 2018. So if it says 0218, that means it was the second week of January in 2018. That's when that tire was made. So you know you're good. Like I said, if it's over 5 years, you want to be a little hesitant. Over 10, you just pretty much don't use it. Anyways, let's talk about these Michelin Pilot Road 4 trail tires. Now, this front tire on this bike I had installed at 41,000 miles, and the bike is now just over 60,000, so I got just about 20,000 miles out of that tire. I would say I could maybe push it about another 1,000, but I'm just not going to risk it. It's getting pretty bald and pretty close to the wear marks, so I wouldn't even say close. It's on the wear marks. I could run them a little bit longer, but I'm not gonna risk it. Now, as far as the rear tire, that one I had installed at 51,000, so I'm just about 10,000 miles with that tire. Now, unfortunately, those 10,000 miles were mostly commuting to work with a few trips here and there and a little bit of off-road too. What really killed that tire was the straight line that I take to get to work every day. 13 miles there, 13 miles back, so 26 miles a day. It just wore out the middle of the tire. If I was hitting the twisties a little more often and able to use a little more of the side of the tire, I'm sure they would have lasted a little bit longer, but I wouldn't expect to see 20,000 on the rear tire just because of the weight on the back of the bike. So I have 5 points that I want to rate these tires on, and the 5 points are going to be value, on-road performance, off-road performance, wet conditions, and any kind of odd wearing or wear patterns. So as far as value, we're just going to look at longevity versus price, and I would say this is pretty good. For a set of tires that cost right around $300, to last for the front 20,000 and the rear just about 10. I maybe would have been happier if I got a little more out of the rear, but like I said, that's partially the way that I was using the tire. I do keep up on tire pressure, and I set it to what the manufacturer of the motorcycle recommends, not the tire manufacturer. But anyways, value. Like I said, I would consider this to be a pretty good value. As far as on-road performance, these things are perfect. Could not ask for more on road. Never had any issues with not having enough grip, short of, you know, a little patch of sand or something. I like to kind of get into it on the turns a little bit. For normal, everyday, non-aggressive riding, I would say you're never gonna feel those tires slip out on pavement. Super grippy, super smooth, quiet. Just a great road tire for sure. Something if I was just gonna be touring on the road, I would probably stick with these. As far as off-road, they're decent. They're not gonna knock your socks off, let's just say that. I've really not had major issues with it, short of being in the sand or being in mud. I did have some pretty major issues in some mud a few months back, but that's to be expected with a tire that really isn't meant for that kind of stuff. So normal gravel roads like this one, dirt trails, hard packed stuff with a little loose gravel and whatnot, totally fine. If all I was doing was fire service roads and county maintained dirt roads, this tire's perfect. You don't really need anything more than that. Wet conditions, I would say they are excellent in the rain. Never really had major issues, no kind of hydroplaning or anything like that, no odd feelings in wet conditions. Confidence inspiring is the words I would use to describe this tire in the rain. You know, for me, with these tires on this bike in the rain, I pretty much ride the way I do on dry pavement. So I'd say they're excellent in wet conditions. Now, as far as odd wearing, like I said, nothing unusual other than that slight flat spot on the rear tire. And that's just on the center, and that's pretty common with, you know, heavy highway miles or just commuting in a straight line and not really using the sidewall of the tire too much. So yeah, overall, super happy. I would definitely be using these again for a similar type of application. Like I said, I'm getting ready to switch to something a little more off-road, so that's why I'm not sticking with these. Otherwise, I'd just be getting another set of these. Now that we've kind of talked about those, I never really did a review of the tires I had on before this, and that was the Anakee 3s. So I just want to go through the same 5-point system. I was averaging similar mileage to the Road Pilot 4s, so I was getting somewhere pretty close to 20,000 on the front, and I was actually getting a little more out of the rear, probably a little closer to 15,000. As far as those 5 points, for value, I would say value was good. For the money, they lasted a long time. So if you were happy with how the tires performed, it's an excellent value. As far as on-road, they were pretty decent. You know, they grip like a normal tire, nothing out of the ordinary there. As far as off-road, I would say they were a better tire than these. They had a little more grip because of that horizontal tread, which definitely was a benefit when I was off-road and looser stuff. Don't get me wrong, sand was still a nightmare on this big heavy bike, and so was mud. But on a road like this, which is a county maintained dirt road with some gravel and some loose surface, a little bit of patches of sand here and there, that set of tires was always great. I never had anything to complain about. Wet conditions, I was not impressed with them. This is where I started not liking the Anakees. Now this is just my experience, just what I, you know, felt with those tires. Now also, the first time I noticed an issue with these in wet conditions, the Anakees, I had a fully loaded bike and all of the weight was on the back end of the bike. I had a big duffel bag and a top case and all my camping gear, and with a ton of weight on the back of the bike. And I was hitting a lot of really bad weather. And what I noticed happening was that I didn't feel like I had excellent traction in the rain on the front tire. It felt like it would hydroplane every once in a while. Now, of course, part of the issue was that most of the weight was on the back, but it freaked me out about these tires. They just weren't great in the rain. And that freaked me out, and I just wasn't comfortable with it. So I switched from those to these, and even fully loaded with all the weight on the back, these Road Pilot 4 trails, excellent in the rain. And the 5th point would be any kind of odd wearing on the Anakees. Yes, 100% every time. there would still be plenty of life left in the tires, and I would have to replace them because of cupping. Now this is a little more than just that normal flat spot you get in the middle of the tire that I'm currently experiencing with these. It would get like a rounded edge. You know, what's going on with these tires right now, that flat spot I can deal with, and for a day and just did about 300 miles on the twisties, I could probably round these back out. The issue with the cupping I was getting on the Anakees was that it was creating like a bump. So when I would lean over, it was like a bump. That's the only way I can really explain it. And it was very unnerving in the twisties, or even just taking a sharp right turn or a sharp left turn. You would always feel this like give. Really not a fan of that. So between the rain and the odd cupping I was getting, I just decided they weren't really the right tires for me. But like I said, they're pretty decent value. I mean, they last a good amount of time for the money. So that's kind of my opinion on the Anakee 3s. Anyways, if you got something out of this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't already. That way you don't miss anything whenever I post something new about motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.